Humblemud.
Today, I'm bringing you guys a special video because I'm talking about and giving away 5 legendary shooters courtesy of KOMODO. And these are some of the best shmups I've ever played. Like, legitimately, they're making me rethink my top 10 of all time. So today, we're looking at 5 iconic shooters, and I'll be giving away a copy of each one to 5 lucky winners. And I'll explain how to enter the drawing a little later in the video. Full disclosure, they provided review keys for these games, but this isn't a paid promotion. These are simply my honest impressions after playing each of them. One quick thing to keep in mind before we begin, these are bullet hell shooters, the kind of games that people spend months or even years mastering. I obviously didn't have that kind of time with them, so what you're getting here is the perspective of someone discovering what makes each of these games special, while also getting back up again and again and again after the beatdowns. Anyway, let's start with the one that grabbed me immediately. The first game I want to talk about is Crimzon Clover, World Explosion, and honestly, full stop, this is one of the best shmups I've ever played in my life. This was the one that really shook up my perception of what my top 10 games were. From the very first level, it nails that power fantasy feeling that the best shooters have, and I was hooked all the way to the end during my first sitting, no matter how many times I had to hit continue. Yes, it's a bullet hell, and yes, the screen eventually fills with ridiculous patterns and chaos, but what really impresses me here is how readable everything feels when you're the one in the driver's seat. The game does a fantastic job communicating information to the player. Sound effects alert you when the brake mode is ready, available bombs are clearly indicated, and there's even text beneath your ship letting you know what's available, which is perfect because your eyes are usually focused right there while you're dodging a rain of hellfire. Visually, it's an absolute stunner as well. The pixel art is fantastic, the explosions are satisfying, and the boss designs are incredible. My favorite fight was against the boss in Stage 3, where the battle evolves over time and it eventually splits and turns into what I've dubbed the Crimzon Clover, and this battle in particular is just burned into my memory. Moments like these make the game feel huge and dynamic, and this game is filled with those moments, and the more you play, the more everything starts to click. At first it looks overwhelming, but eventually you start recognizing the patterns, and once that happens, the entire experience becomes incredibly satisfying. Next up, we have another legendary shooter, Mushihimesama, which is another game that completely blew me away and is also a contender for my top 10 as well, but not for the reasons that I expected. Now, I've seen footage of this game for years, and while I always thought the insect-themed enemies looked really cool and the overall art style and characters stood out, I never really understood what made this game so beloved and different from other bullet hells. Then I actually played it. If you want to understand what makes Mushihimesama special, my advice is simple. Play it with headphones, because the soundtrack in this game is phenomenal. Honestly, I think it's one of the best video game soundtracks I've ever heard in my life. You could drop some of these tracks into a grand JRPG and it would fit perfectly. What's interesting is how this music interacts with the gameplay. The soundtrack is often calm and contemplative, while the gameplay itself is anything but. You're still dodging massive bullet patterns, but the music creates this almost therapeutic rhythm to the whole experience. As a result, even when you die, which you will, you're not really discouraged. I actually found myself smiling half the time before jumping right back in for another run. When I first installed the game, I noticed that the soundtrack was packaged with it and didn't really think much of that, but after playing through it, I completely understood why. The soundtrack alone is worth the price of admission for this game, and on top of that, you're getting one of the best shooters out there with it. This one really gave even Crimzon Clover a run for its money. And quite possibly the most recognizable name in this group, DoDonPachi. That's right, we're talking DoDonPachi Resurrection here. This one was actually the last one of the bunch that I played because the series has such a huge reputation that I was honestly a little intimidated going in. And yes, the difficulty absolutely lives up to that reputation, but what surprised me is how intuitive this game is and how clearly you can feel yourself improve over time. Once the systems start to click in your head, you begin to understand how the game wants you to play. You have 2 primary firing styles, a focused laser that's perfect for for precision damage and bosses, and a wider attack that helps control more of the screen. You can also activate Hyper Mode, which dramatically powers up your attacks and even converts enemy bullets into medals. When you time this just right against an onslaught of enemies, or right as the boss powers up their next wave of attacks, it's so satisfying. You can swipe their attacks away like it's nothing, laugh it off, and blast away. So even though enemy fire can feel oppressive at times, the game really rewards aggressive play and smart hyper timing. I mean, they can't hurt you if you blow them up first, right? And honestly, that mentality is basically the only way to survive DoDonPachi. It's hectic, it's overwhelming, but it's also incredibly fun. And I have to give the designers some credit for one very important detail. The hitbox of your ship is tiny. It's essentially that little glowing dot right there. And trust me, if it were any bigger, there's absolutely no way you would survive some of the patterns that this game throws at you. Now, I do have experience with shmups and arcade shooters and running guns and things like that. Last year, I covered my 70 favorites when I went on a 5-month binge playing these kinds of games. But these games have a prestige reputation to them that honestly intimidated me a little bit. But playing all three of them, I realized that a common theme is how quickly you improve with practice. And I'm happy to say that, yeah, I'm still not the best ever, but I did get a few no-hit clears on some of these stages. And moments like that are exactly what makes games like these so addictive and keep you coming back. Now, before we get to the final two games, let's talk about the giveaway. Like I said, KOMODO was kind enough to provide keys for the games featured in this video, and I'll be giving 5 copies away, one for each game discussed today. And entering is simple. Just leave a comment below telling me one of the following. Tell me what your favorite shmup is and why. Tell me your favorite arcade shooter related memory or story that you might have, or let me know which game in this video looks the most interesting to you. And before you do that last one, just keep in mind there's still 2 more to share. I'll read through all of the comments just like I always do, and as long as your comment relates to one of those 3 things, you'll automatically be entered. I'll randomly select 5 winners and announce them on March 18th via a community post. Lastly, even if you don't win the drawing, keep in mind that KOMODO is also running a publisher sale from March 19th through the 26th, so these games will be available at a significant discount right after the giveaway ends. That way it's sort of a win-win for everyone. Alright, back to the games. We're going to finish things up with 2 more shooters, and these were both developed by Triangle Service. Triangle Service is known for making very traditional arcade-style shooters, and you can definitely feel that old-school arcade philosophy here with these 2 compared to some of the more modern bullet hells that we talked about earlier. The first of these is XIIZEAL. One of the interesting mechanics in XIIZEAL that separates it from other shooters, even those with that old-school style, is that your ship can attack in multiple directions at once. You fire forward just like any other ship, but your exhaust can actually destroy weaker enemies behind you, and you can fire from the side as well. In the original arcade version, those side attacks were tied to joystick movement, meaning you had to constantly waggle the stick back and forth to activate them. Thankfully, this version has an auto side attack mapped to a button, which makes the controls feel much more precise. And it's important to use these side shots too because they actually do significantly more damage than your main weapon fire. Using this side attack in combination with the black hole bomb, which absorbs enemy fire, lets you sit right on top of bosses and just wail on them. It's so sick. It's moments like these where you pop that black hole bomb and then just sit right on top of the enemies and shred through them, where the game just feels utterly fantastic and unlike other shooters. Weaving through them while attacking from multiple directions makes you feel like a force of nature, and that 12x point bonus ringing over and over again becomes something you start to crave. It's definitely challenging, especially since the continues aren't as generous as the ones in the previous games that I talked about, but XIIZEAL is incredibly rewarding to play and get better at. Now, the final game we're going to talk about today, last but not least, is DELTAZEAL, also developed by Triangle Service, and this one feels like it's coming from a completely different philosophy. Your ship moves much slower, almost tank-like in the way that it handles, while enemies fire extremely fast bullets. That means that the game demands a lot more memorization and positioning. You need to understand where enemies appear, recognize the patterns they fire, and place yourself correctly with very little time to react. Because of this was probably probably the hardest game of the bunch for me personally. It's the kind of shooter where every mistake feels expensive, especially when you consider that, like XIIZEAL and unlike the first 3 games in this video, you don't have unlimited continues. With that said, something about it just keeps making me come back again and again. The music is fantastic, and the higher stakes constantly keep you on the edge of your seat. It's also important to note that depending on how you perform from level to level, you'll encounter branching paths mid-level that help keep the experience feeling fresh every time, and I think especially because of the classic laser, wide shot, and homing missile upgrades, you'll feel right at home if you're a fan of traditional arcade shooters like Raiden. But just keep in mind, this is kind of like Raiden on steroids. After spending time with all of these games, I got a strong reminder of just how much I love this genre. There's nothing quite like the sense of adrenaline you get from making it through a level unscathed just by the skin of your teeth, feeling that flow as your brain syncs up with the music and the bullet patterns. Even in just this group of 5 games alone, there's so much variety here as well, and I don't think that's something that the shooter genre gets enough credit for in general. From the explosive spectacle and mech designs of Crimzon Clover, the hypnotic atmosphere and giant insect of Mushihimesama, the legendary bullet hell chaos of DoDonPachi, and then XIIZEAL's unorthodox shooting mechanics and DELTAZEAL's iron grip on old school arcade punishment, each of these games approaches the genre from a wildly different angle. I had an absolute blast diving into these games, and I can't wait for the day that I 1 credit clear them. Probably won't be anytime soon though. And honestly, let me just say this whole experience felt like a dream come true. The fact that KOMODO trusted me enough to explore these legendary games and share my thoughts is incredibly humbling, and this is in large part to you guys and the support that you've given this channel along the way. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, make sure you hype it if you're able to, leave a comment, especially if you want to enter the competition, and share it with anyone you know who loves arcade shooters. And hopefully this won't be the last time that we dive into KOMODO's library. There are many more adventures waiting for us. If you're still here, thanks so much for watching, and as always, stay humble.